The Reverend Forest Church served All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church in New York City as senior pastor for over 30 years. When he retired in 2006, he was named All Souls Minister of Public Theology, a title befitting the man who authored numerous books on theology, history, and on religion in America. In 2008, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. His illness motivated him to write a book summing up his religious philosophy called The Cathedral of the World, a Universalist Theology, and then a second book, the book from which today's reading is taken, Love and Death, My Journey Through the Valley of the Shadow. Forest Church died in 2009 at age 61. He writes, "Death is central to my understanding of religion. Religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. We are not the animal with an advanced language or tools as much as we are the religious animal. Knowing that we must die, we question what life means. The answers that we arrive at may not be religious answers, but the questions death forces us to ask are, at heart, religious questions. Where do I come from? Where am I going? What is life's purpose? What does all this signify? Death is not life's goal," says Forest Church. "Death is not life's goal, only life's terminus. The goal is to live in such a way that our lives will be proved worth dying for. And this is where love comes into the picture. The one thing that can't be taken from us, even in death, is the love we give away before we go." The second reading is by the poet and novelist May Sarton. "I would like to believe," she writes, "that when I die, I have given myself away like a tree that sows seed every spring and never counts the loss. Because it is not loss, it is adding to future life. It is the tree's way of being, strongly rooted perhaps, but spilling out its treasure on the wind." In her book, Facing Death and Finding Hope, Christine Longacre writes, "Lest you assume that the facing death of this book's title refers to those diagnosed with life-threatening illness, you will be reminded that we are all facing death at this very moment. Living concludes soon after we breathe out our last breath. Since we don't know when that last breath will come, preparing for our death begins right now." Well, keeping the reality of death before us can be one of the essential tasks of living. Although that task may not be at the forefront of our busy daily lives, our own bathroom mirror may be the best reminder to help us keep focused on that task. In our reflection, we can examine our face with a practiced eye, noting each new sign of aging, each new gray hair, each new wrinkle, and properly mourn our little deaths as each one comes, and then allow ourselves to embrace and accept the aging process as natural. Our spirits are renewed and our hopes lifted when we watch a television interview with those hale and hearty centenarians who, as they blow out the candles on a blazing birthday cake, are asked to what they attribute their long lives. And I'm also amazed at the replies and how different their reasons are. While one will say, I've never touched a drop of alcohol in my entire life. Another will respond, I have 2 whiskey highballs every day. Another will say, I eat only raw yogurt for breakfast. Another will say, I never touch dairy. Another will say, I took up skydiving in Mexico at age 85. Another will say, I have never set foot beyond my hometown here in Indiana, and I'm doing very well, thank you. So, beyond their thoughts on longevity and how they happen to have lived past 100, I appreciate hearing about their experiences, their values, the hopes they have given their lives, and how they have found meaning in their lives. Admittedly, my elders are a rarefied population as that continues to shrink, but I find their stories help me to think about my own life and ask, what has infused my life with meaning? How might I cultivate a legacy of meaning for those I love? Just 10 years ago, Elizabeth Edwards, the wife of the one-time presidential candidate John Edwards, died from cancer. And she had devoted much of her adult life to working for justice issues. A few days before her death, Elizabeth Edwards issued a statement. Her doctors had told her that further treatment would do no good and that she had weeks, if not only days, left to live. So she went on her Facebook page. She thanked all of her supporters and gave a final gift to them, a message about what had touched her very public life with meaning. She wrote, the days of our lives for all of us are numbered, and we know that. And yes, there are certainly times when we aren't able to muster as much strength and patience as we would like. It's called being human. But I found that in the simple act of living with hope and in the daily effort to make a positive impact in this world, the days I do have are made more meaningful and precious. And for that, I am grateful. Well, in that brief message, Edwards acknowledged the sacred gift of her own life and then passed on a legacy of values to her family and to all who knew her in the wider world. Not long ago, I attended a workshop on end-of-life issues. The workshop was for clergy, healthcare professionals, and caregivers. I picked up a book there and bought it. It's called What's Worth Knowing? A collection of reflections by 70, 80, and 90-year-olds who were asked what they have learned in their fairly long lives. And I found their insights practical as well as meaningful. Like those of Martha McCallum, 86. She wrote, one morning I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring into space. It was one of those windy days when the sun keeps coming in and going out, and all of a sudden a sunbeam crossed my kitchen table and lit up my crystal salt shaker. There were all kinds of colors and sparkles. It was one of those beautiful sights I'd ever seen. But you know, she says, that very same salt shaker had been on my kitchen table for over 50 years. Surely there must have been other mornings when the sun crossed the table like that. But I was just too busy getting things done. I wondered what else I had missed. And I realized this was it. This was grace in my life. Or this reflection from Bill Minton, an 89-year-old retired school janitor and handyman. There's two kinds of people, the ones who live hard and the ones who take it easy. The hard livers are really tough on themselves. They take chances. They never stay comfortable for too long. The easy livers play it safe. They never push themselves. 1 year runs into the next because the years are all basically the same. Bill adds, to youngsters I say, live hard. This is your one and only life, the only show in town. You can't get any of your days back. Live as if you're going to be old someday, looking back on everything you did. It's everything you didn't do that will just bug the heck out of you. Well, Bill Milton's words remind me of a New Yorker cartoon I saw recently. The therapist asked the man who was lying on the couch in her office, if your life were a reality show, would you want to watch it? Well, many of us do some planning for the end of our lives. We complete necessary documents, and I know you've had an adult education class here at church about that very thing. A will, a durable power of attorney for health care, a living will, to guide those who may have to make treatment decisions for us. And you can actually find those documents here at KUUF. A couple of them are out on the table in the front. And your parish nurse, Jennifer Ingalls, has prepared packets with 2 different advance directives, the one from End of Life Washington and 5 Wishes, another form. She keeps those packets here, and so you always have them available to you. And if you'd like, you can contact Jennifer, and she will talk with you one-on-one to help you understand any terminology that might be unclear to you in those documents. And this is a wonderful service that Jennifer provides to all of you here in this congregation. Then remember, after you fill out those documents, it's important to share them with family and loved ones long before they are ever needed, so everyone understands what your wishes are. But beyond the contents of these official documents, what do we want our lives to say? Well, like each one of you, I have had many decades of what I call life lessons, experiences, learnings, and insights that have shaped my values, the moral, the ethical, and religious grounding that has sustained and nurtured my life. And passing along to our family and loved ones our life lessons, our values, our hopes and dreams for them and the world can be a legacy that is at least as enduring as that mahogany china cabinet or sterling silver tableware that you inherited from your mother and grandmother. My father, who was born in 1901, gave me a legacy 3 years before his death, and it's remained with me for these 3 decades. My friend Margaret Gribscove, a history professor at the Evergreen State College, was teaching a class on Pacific Northwest farming history. She invited my father, who was born in a 2-room cabin on his parents' homestead in eastern Washington's Palouse country, to come to her class and share his memories of farm life before and after World War I. Well, Margaret recorded that class session, and it's from that CD that I have today that I learned things about my father's childhood and adolescence I never knew. About wheat harvest when teams of 16 horses pulled the combine. Of devastating fires that swept through the ripe fields of grain. Of the wildflowers and birds he remembered from his childhood that were eradicated by pesticides and herbicides. Of the parties at the Farm Community Social Center, the 1-room schoolhouse at Lower Downing Creek, or Crick, as my parents said. That CD preserves the legacy from my father, first shared with Evergreen College students and then passed on to me. So what has touched us in our own human journeys? Too often learned through difficult times as well as joyful times. Things like a broken relationship with a brother or sister, the power of forgiveness and of reconciliation, the exhilaration experienced while hiking in the Olympics, your feelings of wonder as you watched John Glenn set foot on the moon just 50 years ago this summer. Our personal experiences and memories can be extraordinary gifts to all of those we love. When we revisit and share the challenging, the vigorous, and yes, the sacred experiences that have shaped us and have shaped the world, we have the opportunity to share our full humanness. Last fall, a friend mentioned to me she was in a class writing ethical wills and was finding that writing her own to be a very valuable experience. She explained to me that ethical wills are writings we share with your family and community. They share your values, the blessings in your life, the lessons you have learned from your life, your hopes for the future, your love, and forgiveness. The practice of writing an ethical will has lasting value to you. Like my friend, some write ethical wills at turning points in their lives, just like Elizabeth Edwards did at the end of her life, and during challenging life situations. But by articulating what we value, what has transformed us as a person, what we stand for, we are helped to come to terms with our mortality and to create a meaningful gift that lives on long after we are gone. Now, for some people, this is a spiritual exercise. Some prefer to do it alone, others in a group or with a good friend. But each of us has a desire to be remembered, to leave something behind, and how we can shape our own legacy. An ethical will gives us an opportunity to share those values and experiences that have shaped our lives and our understanding of the sacredness of this life. As Forest Church reminds us in that reading earlier, the one thing that can't be taken from us, even by death, is the love we give up before we go. I have to admit I have not yet begun the process completely of writing my own ethical will, but I know it will include my love for the beauty of this earth, found especially in the dry lands of eastern Washington's Blues Country, but also in the mountains and beaches of the Olympic Peninsula, my own passion for justice, and my belief in the transforming power of love in this world. I hope these, as well as my appreciation of good literature, will be remembered and perhaps inspire my family and community of friends. And yes, there is a book about ethical wills. Barry Baines, the physician who authored the book called Ethical Wills, found common themes that run through many of the ethical wills shared with him. Some touched on life lessons that nurtured personal beliefs or spiritual values. One woman wrote how, as a child, she was awakened to the reality of racial discrimination when her mother told her she could not invite her African-American classmate to her 7th birthday party. This memory fired this 65-year-old woman's commitment as an activist for racial justice. Like this woman, you can begin by remembering and then just telling stories, sometimes just to yourself. You can begin with a notebook, just writing a few words or a sentence or two about your beliefs or opinions. Things you did to act on your values, like whoever started the Farmers Market Program here at KUUF. That's a value and an act that has left a legacy here within this congregation. And say why you did this. You could tell about one thing you learned from your parents, your grandparents, your siblings, your partner, your friends, just from your experiences living in this world. Start with this idea. Just imagine you have only a limited time left to live. What would you want to say to your family, your friends, or community in your ethical will? One authority in end-of-life care has observed, it has been said that life is a sexually transmitted condition with a terminal prognosis. Well, in light of that unambiguous prognosis, it's never too late or too soon to ask for and express forgiveness, to say thank you, to say I love you to the people who are important to us. These simple words have the power to transform that which matters most to each of us, our relationships with the people we love. An ethical will with your values, your hopes and dreams can leave an indelible mark on other people, outliving your physical time on this earth we share. We don't need to wait until we are old, however that might be defined. As we get older, it seems to be moving up a notch or two. We can take a tip from the essayist Susan Ertz, who observes, millions long for immortality who do not know what to do with themselves on a rainy Sunday afternoon. Well, perhaps a step toward that longing for immortality could begin on this semi-sunny, maybe cloudy Sunday afternoon. Just make a few notes. Jot down a sentence or two about some things for which you are grateful. Your hopes for the future. Your experience of world events. How values like honesty, generosity, and acceptance have shaped your life and continue to shape it. This is how 85-year-old Giuseppe Mastriani, an inveterate gardener, said he wanted to be remembered. I don't care if the whole neighborhood thinks I'm a crazy old man. There's that old fool who talks to his tomato plants, who dotes on them all day long. Well, just let them laugh. My tomatoes always turn out to be the best on the block. I touch my plants. I make sure they have plenty to drink. I pinch off the extra leaves, but I leave a few for a little shade on the hot days. Sure, I talk to them. Why not? Tending a garden isn't so different from raising children. Plants like it when you spend time with them. My kids turned out pretty good too. Another thing, said Giuseppe, don't keep the whole crop for yourself. There's always people who don't know how to make things grow, and they need your tomatoes more than anybody else. Well, Giuseppe's fine words offer a framework for thinking about your own lives. We can benefit from his wisdom about growing tomatoes, for how we tell meaningful stories from our everyday lives to pass along the values that are important to us. Remember, don't keep the whole crop for yourself. There's always people who don't know how to make things grow, and they need your tomatoes more